Blake's POV. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? My pacing only increased as Kyle watched calmly from his seat. Not only had she lost her memory, but the council had rejected my claim for a rouge pack. Out of all the people, they had to reject my claim. Look, Blake, you need to calm down and take a deep breath. Just because the council didn't accept the fact that there was a rouge pack doesn't mean that you're going to be punished for murder. You have perfectly good reasons for killing the guy. Kyle reasoned. He was right. Why would they send me to jail when he raped my mate? I mean, just because they didn't believe the rouge part didn't mean that I was a goner. Did it? Kyle, don't you see? If they don't have evidence that he raped and beat my mate, I'll go for murder. I can't afford for that to happen, I growled, my pacing only increasing. I had only just gotten Lyra to be with me yesterday. I can't ruin it now, not when I just got with her. I was questioning that she even liked me at all. Guess it didn't hurt to ask. I know it may seem harsh, but you can't exactly go against them. You need proof, and frankly, they probably can't be bothered to search the Amazon for a secret hideout. They're just a bunch of old men who love the power they hold over everyone. I nodded, not really listening to what Kyle was telling me. What if it wasn't enough evidence? Would they take me, one of the most powerful alphas, away? I received a letter 2 days ago with no reason why they reject the claim. Do you think it was a bad idea trying to get Lyra with me before they do anything drastic? Do you think I'm pushing it with her? I asked Kyle. One of the only reasons why I stepped out and asked her to be with me was mainly because of that letter. It scared me, knowing that I could be taken away from her so soon. That's up to you, man, but I suggest telling her this. She'll probably be pissed that you didn't tell her straight away. He pursed his lips, a thoughtful expression on his face. Also because she seems to be good with information and plans. Get her to give you ideas. You may be the head leader, but she's just as important to the pack as you are. Trust Kyle to give good advice. Okay, I'll tell her now. Why would the council refuse to acknowledge that there was a rouge pack? My mate was physically and mentally abused. Why couldn't they do something about it? I was the alpha of the biggest pack on the continent. There had to be a reason for that. And now they say that I could go away for murdering someone without reason? What kind of bullshit is this? You look like a raging bull. What's up? Lee stepped into the doorway, making room for Kyle to walk past out of the room. Does she always have bad timing? I was just about to make up a speech for what to say to her. She would probably bite my head off or something for not telling her. Either way, you'd still love it, my wolf chuckled. I bit back my tongue from lashing out at him. Right now was not the time. You don't look too amazing yourself. Lie. She looked absolutely gorgeous as always. My pride was starting to get in the way. Wow, Blake, she mock-gasped, placing a hand on her chest. You really know how to make a girl feel good about themselves. I laughed lightly at her natural dry humor. It was funny sometimes, but it could also annoy the crap out of me. You might want to sit down. I'm worried you might kill me. I winced at the accusing glare she sent me. What do you mean? She said lowly, sitting down on the black leather sofa. Why would you think I would hurt you? Various reasons. Is it really that bad? Don't know. Depends on how you look at it. Cut the bullshit, Blake. You're procrastinating. She rolled her eyes and leaned further back onto the couch. Okay, I started, trying to think of a way to explain the problem to her. You know the council, right? Well, I sent a claim that there was a rouge pack and that they should check it out and record it. I swallowed and took a look at her face. She seemed in deep thought and was staring at the carpet. They didn't believe you, did they? She whispered, raising her head to look me in the eyes. For the first time in my life, I saw some sort of fear lurking in her eyes. She looked relatively calm on the outside, but I could sense her emotions going crazy. I only shrugged my shoulders and sat down next to her. Psychic, I muttered and rubbed my forehead with my left hand. I swear someone was out to get me. All that had happened when Lee came was bad shit. First, her past captor turns out to be in my pack. She gets kidnapped by him, loses her memory, and then the council refused to believe us about it. I sent out orders for them to be murdered. If the council refuses to believe that there was a rouge pack, who knows what will happen? They do believe you, you know, she said out of the blue. I turned to face her with a puzzled expression. What? How would you know that? They just refuse to lose favor of the people, she continued, ignoring my question. If anyone found out that the council had let a rouge pact take place, some serious talking will be going on. People would start rising against them for selling them lies. Their power position would be demolished. You're smarter than I thought, I smiled half-heartedly. Well, gee, thanks. I do try. She rolled her eyes, giving me a lop-sided smile. I just did a lot of research. I've got all their files and shit on my database. Come. She gestured for me to get up, and I followed her to my newly refurbished room. It had the same colors, but it was more modern. I had some of my friends come over after I trashed the place so they could clear it out. On here is all my data. I've also got a mirror image on this little thing. She pointed to a little slim black laptop, and next to it was a silver metal box that was as big as my palm. This has a whole terabyte of storage, and I've only used half of it. She brushed her hand across the surface of the silver box. Nice, I commented and watched as she opened her laptop and turned it on. It started with a beep, and a screen popped up, asking for a password. Just hold up. This might take a minute. She raised her hands and started typing. I watched in awe as she whizzed through the multiple passwords, blocking her from accessing her information. There were at least 5 different stages, each on taking longer than the last. Then at the end, there was a camera which showed her face. Lyra put her face in front of the camera and watched the lens as it scanned the contours of her face. It finally opened with another beep, and her background was the normal Windows default page. What's with the password thingy? I asked. Was it necessary to have so many passwords and security check-ins? Just in case anyone tried to hack in, I've got illegal information on this thing. With a press of a few buttons, I can clear the whole database in 2 seconds. My friend has been working on my laptop for a while. I'm horrible with mechanics. I nodded along with what she was saying. At least I found something she couldn't do. She started opening files and unlocking some with passwords. Some were invisible files, but she seemed to know where everything was, as if she did this every day. She opened a file called Photos from Mum's 40th. I stared at the screen as she hesitantly opened the file. Why would she call it that? Why not something else? Like photos from my 16th or something like that. Why Mum's? When it loaded, there were pictures of a birthday cake and presents, but she ignored it and scrolled down the page to the second last picture. There the icon seemed more pixelated, and she clicked on it. When it opened, there was another password and she typed it on. How can she remember all these? Here she pushed the laptop towards me, and there were dozens of scanned documents. I clicked on the first one and it said, Date, 31st March 1998 APSS. Mark Wilkinshire, we have been informed that there was a requested APSS. We have our men ready, and we are only waiting for your permission. If you do not send this back in 32 days, we will have the impression that it is canceled. Signed, General Greg Daniels of the NASM. Reading further, there was no signature on the dotted line, just a black spot. Why wouldn't he allow an APSS, Area Protection Security Search, to be canceled? Everyone knows that it's one of the main reasons why the council was started. North American Shifter Military, I read out loud. They were the one army that could almost rival my own, but I had the numbers on them. The APSS was done annually. It was assumed that it happened, so no one really gave it too much thought anymore. I skipped down a few document S and clicked on the next one that caught my eye. Date, 12th February 2001, APSS. James Donovan, we are waiting for permission to do the annual APSS. Please reply soon or it will be canceled again. Signed, Commander Damian Fisher of the NASM. Again, I voiced out loud. Again, there was no signature. What did they mean by canceled again? How many times had it been canceled? How had no one seen this before? It was going on for about a decade. Lee said. I looked at her in shock. I was more clueless than I thought. When I sent in a letter about the Rouges and what they did to me, they sent me a letter back, telling me what a naive and stupid girl I was and how I probably enjoyed it. It was then that I knew all the good stuff I was told about the council was utter bullshit. I looked at her with wide eyes. They did that. I'm such a dense idiot, I groaned, covering my face with me palms. What had the world come to? That you are, but just keep reading. Dear Joshua Bourne, I've further cancelled the APSS again. We can't have anyone knowing about the number of Rouge packs in North America. People will start to think that we do nothing that benefits them. It could soil our reputation, and more importantly, we could lose all of our political power. Make sure the rest keep it in the dark and that the NSM keeps quiet. No one is to know about this problem. From James Donovan. S. If any inquiries come through about this, send them back a letter telling them opposite. I read over the letter again. It was proof enough, with their signatures and stamps on the document. Whoa. I breathed, trying to wrap my head around it. How did you get all these? I asked her. She gave me a smug look and turned around to face me. I got taught how to hack. They have a pretty shitty firewall. I was surprised how no one else has done it yet. Thank God you still remember all that. I sighed in relief. It would be horrible if you lost most of your memory. She paused for a few seconds before regaining some of her composure. She started. I've been seeing some flashes. They weren't pretty either, she admitted. What? Why didn't you say anything? Because I was waiting for more of my memory to come back, she shrugged, dusting off the invisible particles on her jeans. Okay, but tell me next time, I grumbled, stretching my legs out a bit. Sure, now back to the topic of the council, she reprimanded me. I nodded and let a smirk paint my face. You know what this means, right? I smirked and stood up. She followed suit and locked her computer and packed it away. We stood in front of each other, and she tilted her head, and a dangerous look came over her face, a look I had only seen once before. It was a look I saw when she was about to fight Andrew. Of course, I'm not letting you go to jail just because some old men don't want to lose some power. Well, she growled in determination. It's time to bring the council down. Lyra's POV. I shifted uncomfortably as the alpha of the Blue Diamond Pack kept staring at me, his gaze never leaving my face. I was getting creeped out, and it seemed Blake was too caught up in his temple run again to notice. His phone made the occasional beeps every time he collected coins. It seemed him and the alpha of this place were on good terms, as Blake was completely ignoring him. Not disrespectfully, but as if they knew each other so well that they didn't have to go with the formalities. Hi. I extended my hand forward, waiting for him to respond. He seemed to still be in a trance as the lady next to him rolled her eyes. Was he always like this? Is this how old alphas turned out after this many years of work? Sorry, dear. He seems to think he's seen you before. She chuckled and shook my outstretched hand. I'm Laura, and this is Trent. She pointed to the man sitting next to her, hearing her voice. Trent snapped out of his trance and smiled at her sheepishly, rubbing the back of his neck. He had light, blonde hair with green eyes. The lady next to him had dark brown hair that stopped at her shoulders, and light blue eyes. Right. Sorry about that, but you look familiar. He scrunched up his eyebrows and glanced at Blake. I nudged him with my elbow, and he seemed to be so into his game that he dropped his phone and shot up 3 feet in the air. What was that for? Oh, and hi, Aunt Laura and Uncle Trent. He waved at the 2 alphas while retrieving his phone from the wooden floor. There wasn't a crack or anything, but still ran his hands over the phone, checking for any scratches. Aunt? Uncle, you're related to them? I asked, disbelieving the relation. How could they be alphas of this place if Blake was related to them? Wouldn't they be in the same pack for starters? Nope, but I grew up calling them that. I saw them a lot in my childhood. I bobbed my head up and down, pursing my lips. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to go back to my temple run if you don't mind. Oh, I do mind. Thank you very much. Does it look like I care? He raised his eyebrows. Well, you're the one that asked in the first place. Yeah, but you didn't have to. Children, please, calm down. Lara smirked, looking back and forth between Blake and I. We both flung our heads in her direction and gave her a sheepish look. Ah, whoops, I smiled. Blake muttered a sorry and went back to playing on his phone. Typical male. Hey, he yelled when I snatched the phone off him. I stuck my tongue out and gave him a fake smile. Give it back. I almost wanted to laugh at the caught off-guard expression on his face. Why was he so out of it today? Nope, I don't think I will. Now stop being an ass and pay attention. There's a reason why we came here. Is there not? I asked sweetly. Was he suffering from short-term memory loss or something? I'm pretty sure we discussed this yesterday. I know, but my wolf keeps giving me a hard time. Cut me some slack, he sighed. Was he for real? I gave him a flat look and shoved the phone down my bra. That's right, Blake. Let's see you try to get it back now. His mouth flapped open and he just kept staring at my chest. No. Now use your brain. This was your idea. I grumbled and smiled at Lara. She had a weird look on her face and was staring at me as well as Trent. It was kind of creepy. What did I do? Is everything okay? I asked hesitantly, smoothing my hair down by instinct, which happens when lots of people stare at me. They shared a look and beamed at me, showing their pearly white teeth. Ah! Perfect. I swear I've never seen someone put him in his place. Lara exclaimed, clapping her hands. Trent just stayed silent and was looking back and forth between us. He smirked at Blake and mouthed whipped. I chuckled as Blake glared at his blood relative uncle, giving him a dirty look. So, what is it you kids came for? Trent questioned. I nudged Blake when he started twiddling his thumbs, concentrating hard on them. We need your help. It's about the council, I started. Oh no, not those scumbags, Lara moaned. Trent rolled his eyes and patted her knee. What do you need help with? Trent asked, shooting Lara an amused glance. Bringing them down, I stated, waiting for their reaction. I felt Blake tense up next to me, and he subtly moved closer to me on the small couch. His big frame already took up 3/4 of the space. I barely fit as it was. Already, though, Trent burst out laughing. Are you guys serious? And for what reason would this be for? He choked on his laughter, only to be abandoned by Lara. She stood up and walked over to our couch and sat on the armrest next to me. I want to help. You know those idiots only cause more problems. Trent stopped and looked at her in disbelief. Don't even think about using your voice on me. We talked about how you should use it. Just because it works on me doesn't mean you can use it. She growled as Trent's voice died out. The words he was about to say dried up. Busted. But, he breathed, you've got to be kidding me. I'm your mate. You shouldn't be going against me. Exactly. You should be supporting me, Lara reasoned, not budging from her seat. Lara, Trent growled. I felt a bit of his alpha voice leak through, and I saw the conflict in Lara's eyes. She glanced at Trent, biting her lip. I saw her clutch the couch so she wouldn't walk over to him. Come, here. No, I roared, standing up and letting my growls fill the air. My wolf was coming through, and I'm sure everyone could feel it. Trent jumped up and started growling at me as well. The room was now filled with growls, none of us backing down. Back down, he warned, using his full alpha voice, glaring at me viciously. I just turned my growls up and glared at him back. I heard Blake gulp from behind me. I took a step towards him. Trent did the same. Trent seemed startled that I didn't back down from his voice. I only let my voice fill with more power. No, your mate specifically asked you not to use your alpha voice on her, yet you still did. I boomed, watching with satisfaction the slight twitch of his face, showing me the effect my voice had on him. Do you ever let her have her own opinion, or do you control her thoughts as well? I provoked, waiting for him to snap. Of course not, he snarled, clenching his fists. Well, let's ask her, I suggested, leaving no room for objections. Lara, does he? I asked, turning around to stare at her. Blake was standing on the balls of his feet, just in case something bad happened. Although I knew not backing down to an alpha was a bad move, especially when you're on his territory and not a proper alpha yourself, even though I had the blood of one. What? She murmured, avoiding Trent's eyes. It was amazing how confident someone could be until they were either yelled at or an alpha voice came into the conversation. Luckily for me, I had the voice, so it didn't affect me. Does he forcefully try to change your opinion? I questioned, waiting for her response. Don't answer, Lara. Trent cut in, eyes wide with an unknown emotion lurking in them. Shut up, I barked. You're doing it again. Well, Lara began, looking towards the roof. Sometimes, if he really doesn't like an idea of mine. I gave Trent a disapproving look, something that was rarely seen since I was a teenager. He was almost 40 years old. Lara, he snapped. She flinched. I'm sorry, she blubbered, tears gathering up, but it gets frustrating when I can't express my own opinion. She trailed off. Trent's figure softened and he took a deep breath. Damn, okay, I won't use it anymore on her. I hate it when people gang up on me, he grumbled. I frowned at how easily he gave up, but didn't let it bother me. It wasn't my problem that he used his alpha voice. I was just getting him to see how it affected the people around him. Now that we've got this sorted out, I'd like you to see my proof, I confidently chirped, bringing out my already turned-on laptop. I sat down on the couch and saw Lara sit down next to Trent again. Her posture relaxed. It seemed she went through this a lot. Blake next to me was looking between the couple and had a weird expression on his face. Never seen them like that. They were always the perfect couple, he whispered, so only I could hear. I nodded and opened the files to the documents. Nobody's perfect. Some people are just better at hiding it than others, I replied, bringing up the documents. Knock yourselves out. I gestured to the documents on the screen. Trent carefully picked up the computer and clicked on the files. It was pretty funny to watch his facial expressions. At first, it was calm, as if he thought it was a bunch of trash. Then it was slight shock, and finally, it looked like he was watching a zombie apocalypse unfold right in front of his eyes. I can't blame him for it, though. Okay, Trent muttered, running a hand through his hair. I tilted the right side of my lip up and shrugged my shoulders. Do you believe us or not? Blake butted in, getting down to business. I rolled my eyes. Way to kill the tension in the air, Blake. It just seems so unlike the council to do something like this. I mean, it's on paper. No bull, Trent. It has been scanned. What did you think they write on, wax tablets? Lara rolled her eyes, her humor making me smile. Bull? Blake chuckled, but Trent just gave Lara a warning glance. It just seems so fucking unlikely. Don't swear, Lara snapped, her face contorting in anger. No wonder she didn't say the word shit. She doesn't horse, licking swear. Where the hell did you get horse licking from? Somewhere. Now either help me or piss off. I even wondered where I got it from. It was just in my head. Do you believe us? I asked slowly, waiting for an answer. Trent seemed to be thinking it over, and finally he looked to have come down to a conclusion. Yes, I believe you, he finally decided. I let out a gush of air and punched Blake in the shoulder. The only reason why I didn't say no was because you stood up against me. I believed the documents, but your courage makes me think you won't stop at nothing to bring them down. It's not every day that a person who is not a proper alpha stands up against the alpha to the second biggest pack on the continent. My pack will help. I grinned at Blake and fished his phone back out from my bra. You can have it back now, I grinned. He scolded at me, but I saw the sides of his mouth twitch up in amusement. He took the phone from my grasp and shoved it in the back pocket of his black jeans. Thank you. I did a salute with my index and middle finger. We shall be seeing you soon. Come on, Blake. I'm hungry, I whined, picking up his car keys. Next stop, the Dawn Pack, Lyra's POV. Here I rolled my eyes for the 5th time, handing them my laptop. The man sitting in front of me was a jerk and just couldn't believe the fact that I was trying to destroy the council. Almost everyone thought that. Next to him was a little shy blonde. She only spoke with his permission, and even then it was a small hello. The little blonde was staring at the glass table, making sure she didn't make eye contact with anyone in the room. She looked extremely fragile, and the man sitting next to her was her polar opposite in every way. While she had a small, thin bone structure with light blonde hair and blue eyes, the alpha was pure muscle and was close to Blake's height with black hair and dark green eyes. He had a sense of confidence in his presence and looked like he took no shit from anyone. But I could tell every time he looked at Freya, the blondie, he looked less macho. I guess it was an improvement in some sort of way. Hey, I smile at Freya. Her blue eyes hesitantly flickered up to mine and then shifted to Derek's. The alpha, she only tilted her lip upwards before looking back down. It could have been worse. She could have ignored me and make me look like I'm talking to thin air, although she surprised me with her next move. Hello, I'm Freya, she murmured, her smile getting a bit wider. Derek diverted his attention from the screen to look at her for a second, and he looked proud for some reason, but turned back to the screen before she noticed. Lyra? I was about to put out my hand, but I saw the slight flinch she did when she saw my arm move. I decided to just offer her a smile and retracted my arm, placing it in my lap. What's your favorite color? I asked, watching her reaction. I had a slight hunch to what caused her shyness, but I couldn't be sure. White, the color of freedom, light, happiness. Anything good, unless you're in a hospital. She bit her lip in nervousness, moving her gaze away from mine. Mine's navy blue, I smiled, nodding in acceptance to her favorite color. We fell into a silence as I heard Blake explain things to Derek, as he probably noticed I was busy talking to Freya. "What's your dream?" she questioned out of the blue. I snapped my head to look at her, desperately trying to disguise my shock. I cleared M's throat. "My dream is to go to college and become a forensic and health psychologist." I stressed the words college and psychologist so that Blake would get the message. I still wasn't giving up on my dream for college. Keeping my eyes trained on Freya, I felt Blake tense up beside me. "What's yours?" "To have a new childhood." This time it was Derek's turn to tense up, and he frowned at Freya, but she didn't notice. Her eyes were glazed over like she was remembering something. "It's stupid, I know." "No," I shook my head, my thoughts being confirmed. "It's not. It's a great dream." I nodded, feeling my inner psychologist come out. "She was abused when she a child." "Really?" Her eyes lit up. I nodded, answering her question. Derek looked over at me, a dumbfounded expression on his face. I didn't pay any attention to him, focusing on figuring out how to help Freya. "Sure it is. It makes me feel like I have a boring dream," I exclaimed, making sure I didn't raise my voice. I watched as she moved her hair out of her face, her long fringe exposing her face. Saying she was gorgeous was the understatement of the year. She had a small pointy nose with large blue eyes and full red lips. "Nah, I wish I could go to college. You're very lucky," she admitted, looking down as if she was ashamed of the fact that she couldn't go to college. "Have you tried?" I asked, curious if she had actually applied. "No, but I know they won't let me," she trailed off, her voice getting weak at the end. "I haven't had a proper education." "So what?" I shrugged, looking up to see portraits littering the walls. They were all extremely detailed and of nature. Whoever painted them had to be a professional at the least. The one thing they all had in common was the small, black signature at the bottom right, hand corner. Freya. "Wait." I paused, squinting my eyes. "You have a better look at them? Were you the one who painted all these?" She nodded after a minute and bit her lip once again, a sign that she was nervous. "I told Derek not to hang them up, but he insisted," she mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "They're pretty horrible." "Are you kidding me?" I cried. Freya instantly flinched, and I sat down a bit. "Sorry," I mended, watching her posture relax. "But seriously, they are crazy good. I think I just found a way to get you into a college." I grinned, seeing her expression light up. "What? How?" she breathed. I smirked and saw Blake raise his eyebrows at me from the corner of my eye. "Just hand me some paintings of yours. You'll see. Oh, and can you give me some of your details like address, number, and names?" "Sure, anything," she brightened up, her face becoming visibly happier, but I could still sense hesitation in her movements. "I hope you're not making promises you can't keep." Blake muttered in my ear. I scowled and pushed him away, giving him a slight nudge in the ribs. "So what's the verdict?" I asked, watching Derek smile down at the more confident version of Freya. "He said no," Blake replied, looking glum. "Actually, I say yes. My pack will definitely help." Derek smirked, putting his arm around Freya's waist. She stiffened, before realizing it was her mate. "That's great." I clapped and shot Freya a smile. Blake rolled his eyes at me and tried to put his arm around my waist as well, but I slapped his hand away, causing him to pout. He should never pout again. It makes him look constipated. "Well, we should get going. See you at the next meeting," Blake voiced. I stood up and turned around to see some paintings stacked up and a piece of paper with Freya's details. Whoa, that was fast. I picked them up and waved at Freya, walking out after Blake. Such a gentleman, holding the door open for me so I could get out first. "Someone's getting soft," Blake chuckled, stopping so I could catch up with him. I didn't reply straight away, but flashed him an amused smile. "Says the man who's whipped." I smirked. Hoisting the paintings up further, I wouldn't drop them. I hated Chicago. It was the coldest place I've ever been to, and I wanted to get out of here as soon as possible. There was only so much warm blood could do for you. "Okay, I can't win against you when you clearly dominate in the comeback area, but I'm just saying I saw what you did with that girl. You're actually Riz on the inside. You just have an extremely hard shell protecting you. I see why you chose psychology," he nodded to himself, confirming the theory. "It's the only way you can relate and be nice to people without looking Soft, he chuckled at the end, as if saying the word soft amused him. My footing faltered, but I kept walking. Was what he was saying true? Was that the reason why I chose psychology? I was once like Freya, but I learnt to get over it myself. I just completely ignored my past. How had Blake managed to figure me out when I couldn't even do it myself? How had I never realized? It's just my inner psychologist coming out. I shrugged my shoulders and walked ahead of him towards his car. It had ice all over it, but I just walked over to the boot and put the paintings in, sliding into the passenger seat when I had shut the boot. "You know I won't judge you, right?" Blake asked, turning ignition on. The ice had been wiped away from the window, screen, and the car was slowly warming up. "Yeah," I answered breathlessly. "I know." Blake's POV. We were currently sitting in front of the Alpha, to be of the Redwood Pack. So far we have gotten the entire Alphas we've visited so far to help us, and that's about 7. The guy in front of us looked to be around Lee's age and was almost my height, but the attitude of 1,000 teenagers put together. He was also as horny as them all put together as well. So, Ryan leaned over the table and flashed Lyra a toothy smile which made my wolf growl. "You, me, Saturday night? My house." Lyra just gave him a raised eyebrow and I nearly chuckled at the look on her face. "You like older women?" she asked, a smirk on her lips, leaning further forward towards him. "Because you know I'm 18, right? And what are you, 15? I held in the smile as Ryan scowled, but quickly covered it up. The thing that gave him away, though, was his left eye twitching in annoyance. "Only for you, babe," he winked. Only I could call her that. It was now my turn for my left eye to twitch as I unconsciously grabbed her waist and gave it a squeeze. She's going nowhere with him. "So, what you say?" "Deal, but on one condition. Your pack helps us with the council." I saw Ryan swallow as his gaze nervously shifted to the direction his father laid. On his bed, sick. Did she just agree to go on a date with him? I wish I could, but I knew what he was talking about. Ryan's father was sick with cancer and could barely move as it was. That's why we were talking to him instead of his father. "My dad needs me right now." "You're right, he does, but aren't you forgetting who's preventing him from getting the proper medication?" Lyra pressed, edging closer to him than I felt comfortable with. "You know that it's the council's fault that he isn't getting proper medication. They don't want your father getting involved with the human medical services." Ryan stayed quiet as Lyra explained her reasons. It was just then I realized my mate had awesome persuasion powers. No wonder every pack we've been to has agreed. "And you know how rare it is in the shifter world to get cancer, so they don't have the proper medication equipment to help him. Help us, and if we win, I can guarantee that your father will get the help he needs." Ryan now seemed more eager to agree. It was obvious that he loved his dad a lot and would do anything for him. The moody, arrogant Ryan was now replaced with a determined one, set on helping his dad. "We're in." Lyra's POV. "Sit down," I growled, rolling my eyes, while I watched the men all around me scramble for seats. I now noticed that Blake had gotten a larger table so that 2 could fit at the head instead of 1. I was fine with sitting at the side. But obviously he wasn't. "Thank you," I sighed, leaning back in my seat. All of the Alphas in front of me were giving me weird looks, as if to say, "I understand why you came to talk to us, but why are you in this room right now?" Growls suddenly erupted out of nowhere. 2 of the Alphas were fighting over the last chair. Each one was gripping a corner, and they were both glaring into each other's eyes. "I thought Alphas were meant to be smart," I nudged Blake, pointing to the obvious spare chair behind them. "As well as aware of their surroundings," I coughed, making sure everyone in the room heard me. The 2 Alphas finally stopped challenging each other and swiveled their heads to look at me. "I'm just saying, there's a spare chair behind you guys. You know if you wanna..." I gestured to the chair and watched as their faces turned red from embarrassment. "Is this normal? To fight over chairs?" I turned to Blake, giving him a wide eyes look. "I thought we had finished preschool ages ago." "Excuse me," one of the 2 fighting Alphas snarled, baring me his teeth. "You're excused," I smiled, fluttering my eyelashes at him. Blake tensed up beside me and growled as well, his voice rising above the others. Great. Now there were 3 growling Alphas. "Don't you give her that look. Blake scowled, standing up. His chair made a deafening screeching sound as it slid backwards against the wooden floor. Sit done, you fool. I pushed down on his shoulders, but that only made him growl at me. And don't growl at me. Sorry, but he was glaring at your back and gave you the finger. So what? It's his own problem that he's immature, not mine. And I gave him another forceful push on his shoulder, making him sit down, but he was still glaring at the guy who gave me the finger. Geez, Blake, calm your farm. I rolled my eyes, smiling at the rest of the alphas. Are we ready to start yet? I clapped my hands, silently nudging Blake to get him out of his angry haze. A chorus of yes followed my question, and I smiled, finally happy that I was getting my revenge. So here's the layout of the main council building in Elenios, where they are all having a meeting together in 4 days' time. Lyra's POV. Holding up my now platinum blonde hair, I scowled at Blake, who was probably grinning at me from behind the bushes. I also had to have light green contacts in my eyes and wear bright red lipstick. It was a weird feeling wearing lipstick, since I never wore it before. I felt like I had a weird, sticky thing on my lips and I couldn't get it off. This wasn't part of my plan. In all truth, I looked like a hooker with a hot pink skin, tight dress that ended just after my ass. At first, they were going to put a sparkly pink dress on me, but I think they saw I was about to faint, so they decided to skip the glittery part. I also had to have nude, colored wedges on my feet, which hurt like a bitch. Alice was squealing at me after she did my makeup, but she obviously couldn't tell that her enthusiasm wasn't appreciated. Look happier. Blake snapped in my ear. It was also decided, since I wasn't part of the pack, that I had to wear an earpiece. It couldn't be seen from a distance, but if you looked closely, you could see a bit of the black wires connecting to my back. I couldn't talk back to them, but I could do hand gestures, so I decided to flip him the finger, and I straightened up my back and swayed my hips a bit more. I made sure to sneak some shorts under my dress when Alice wasn't watching, so I could do some fighting without freaking out that someone would look up my dress. This was the reason why I didn't wear dresses or skirts. It made it hard to move in, and I was also slightly claustrophobic. But Blake doesn't have to know that. There was a highway a little way out of here, so I had to pretend that my car broke down. I was also wearing heavy perfume, so they wouldn't be able to tell that I was a shifter. I felt a little bit under pressure since everyone was expecting me to get in and distract the meeting a bit, so the council wouldn't notice that all their guards had been knocked out and replaced. It was also slightly cold, wearing a thin dress in winter. Luckily, there wasn't much snow, but I was still freezing. I was so going to kill Kyle for suggesting that I wear something revealing and girly to catch their attention. Luckily for me, Blake was on my side for a while because he didn't want me to be around some pervy old men in a tiny dress, until Kyle told him he could be the main guard outside the meeting room. I'm so getting rid of this shit on me as soon as this is over. They couldn't have dyed my hair black. No, it had to be blonde. I huffed angrily, kicking some of the leaves on the ground with my shoes, trying not to trip over. Now, what did I say about talking to yourself? Blake asked through the earpiece. I could hear some laughing at the other end, and I knew they could hear me talking even from far away, and I couldn't respond. It was so frustrating, since I knew they would kill me if I turned back just so I could get back at him. I ignored the slight twitch my eye did and quickened the pace as I neared the large building, making it look as if I was out of breath. I made my breathing irregular and swiped my arm across my head in fake exhaustion, pretending to stumble a bit on my heels. Oh, thank God! I cried out dramatically, making myself run a bit faster. Sir, could you help me? I called, waving over to one of the guards at the gate. The guard's head instantly snapped to my direction. I saw him about to reach for his weapon, but then his eyes did a full scan of me. Sir, could you please help me? My car broke down and I need a place to phone from since there's no service out here. I gestured to the forest surrounding us. Do you think I could get phone in there? I pointed to the mansion in front of me, tapping my right hand on my thigh and tilting my head to the right. The man couldn't seem to get any words past his lips and was gawking at my body. I felt like punching him in the face, but I clenched my jaw and pretended I didn't notice, putting on a dumb expression. Are you, sure? Go you me out? He blubbered, screwing up his grammar. Go you me out? Was he for real? The guy could at least make sense instead of turn into a mush of crap. I hadn't even done anything. Was it wrong to feel like recording his reactions right now and posting it on Facebook? I hoped not. I'll think about it, but I really need to make a call right now. My mum's in hospital and I need to see her as soon as possible. I rushed, pretending to panic. The man seemed to break out of his daze and nodded frantically. Of course, come this way. He grabbed my hand and dragged me along the path to the front door. Time for Blake to start to make his way inside. I rejected the idea of letting go of his hand since I needed him to bring me inside. Even though I wanted to repeatedly wash it over and over, his hand was hairy and sweaty and was quite small for his height. Wow! I gasped, tilting my head up, looking up at the ceiling. It's so cool, I giggled, letting him drag me a bit to show how in awe I was at the place. It wasn't that impressive, but I had to fake being an airhead, and frankly, I've never taken drama classes before. Sure, I've done media, but not full-on acting where we read Shakespeare and shit. Those classes never really appealed to me, and it's now I realize that maybe I should have taken them, since I have no idea what I'm doing. I'd like to think I'm an amazing actor that could be stars with someone extremely famous in Hull. So, what is this place? I asked, still pretending to be distracted by the fancy ornaments in the hall. This place had very high roofs, with gold accents everywhere. It kind of looked like it should belong with royalty, but I guess that's what the council think of themselves, as royalty. There were flowers everywhere, and this place looked like it should belong in the Baroque period where everything was crazy, detailed, and elegant. I'm afraid it's not my place to tell you that, but I will bring you to the owners and they will lend you a phone. The guard muttered, looking put off by the fact that I won't be with him for a little longer. Sucks to be him. We're in. Blake whispered into his earpiece. All of a sudden I heard a cry in the distance, and the guard flipped his head around and was crouched low, his hand placed on his gun. I quickly felt for the knife placed on my leg, just in case he was smarter than he looked, and figured out I wasn't here to make a phone call. Shit! I suddenly cursed under my breath, sneaking a glance at the paranoid guard who was stretching his head back and forth so fast I was worried he would tear a muscle or something. Of course, trying to cover up for Blake, I had to think up of something fast. So I started hiccuping. Jokes. I started crying out and clutching my ankle. Ouch! I whimpered, biting my lip as I quickly twisted my ankle to the side to make it look as if I rolled it. The guard quickly turned to me and saw I was holding ankle and that it was twisted in a weird angle. Oh, are you okay? He panicked, his hands flopping around all over the place, knocking me off my feet. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. I pushed myself up and dusted off, pretending to be mad with him. Could you please just take me to that phone you mentioned? I huffed, straightening my hair behind me and rubbing my ankle. Oh, of course. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I held my hand up, signaling for him to shut up. His mouth closed, and he looked like he was a puppy being kicked, repeatedly, with leather boots and spikes. He hastened his pace and was almost sprinting. He seemed nervous and his hands were shaking slightly. I heard him gulp, but I just kept act as if I was angry at him. We walked up to a set of large doors which stretched up almost to the high ceiling. They were painted a cream color with gold lining around the crevices. He gulped again as he knocked, and the sound echoes off the walls of the mansion. The place seemed almost like a haunted castle, but was insanely renovated and cleaned. Come in. A voice boomed from behind the double doors. It made the guard jolt, and he started shaking. I curled up my lip a bit as the door creaked open like in those cliché movies, without anyone being there to open it up. I quickly plastered a smile on my face and puffed out my chest a little bit. As I suspected, there were only men in the room, and their faces were all trained on me. Hey! I waved my hand, appearing to look confident, but clueless as to why they were having a meeting. They all started to look at each other, using their pack link to discuss what to do with me. My car broke down and there's no reception. I was wondering if you guys have a line I could use? Exactly how did you find Thing Place? An old man with graying hair and brown eyes asked, a smirk on his face. I saw a trail on the side of the road, so I thought, all trails must lead to something, right? I laughed, not bothering to notice none of them were laughing with me. They all looked really serious, and the giant table they were all gathered at had drinks and snacks placed everywhere. It was then I realized that the guard behind me had disappeared and the doors were closed. "What's your name, girl?" Another man snarled, except this one had dyed black hair and lifeless blue eyes. Crap. I didn't have name. I stiffened, thinking of a name I could use. Alice Cullen! I winced, knowing that I couldn't have chosen a name worse than that. Blake was going to kill me for that, Alice Cullen. I swear, what shifter chooses a vampire's name for a cover-up? Not only that, but I didn't even like Twilight. So, Miss Cullen, is there someone you can contact? I seems like they didn't know about Twilight, so I decided not to question it. Yes, my mum's in hospital, so I'm going to call my auntie to see if she can come out and get me. I smiled, flashing him my pearly whites. They all nodded, but had a weird look in their eyes, still looking me up and down. Oh, please, no need. We can have someone take you out to your mother, the same man who asked my name smiled. I froze. We hadn't discussed what to do if they told me they could drop me off. Improvise time. Aw, thank you. Would you really do that? That's so sweet. I giggled. Well, tried to anyway. Laughing on purpose is harder than I planned. It's like trying to ride a bike without the pedals. You can't actually do so, you have to get off and push the bloody thing so it moves, so I probably sounded like a dying cat. Of course, who wouldn't help a lady in distress as soon as he said that? The two doors behind me smashed in and splinters flew everywhere. I quickly ducked so they wouldn't pierce my skin. I would have screamed, but I think it would just be a waste of my voice. You! It's a setup! A man from across the table yelled, jumping over the mess to get to me. Soon enough, everyone was getting the idea and was heading towards me. About all 20 of them. Time to run. Would, but I know I'm not, so this dude had to be extremely dense to buy my act. Lyra's POV. I scrambled up towards the gaping hole in the wall. The sound of footsteps following behind me drove me faster. Running out of the hole, I saw Blake and a couple of his men dressed up as guards. My shoes skidded across the floor, almost making me fall. Screw these bloody things. I ripped of the buckles and chucked the wedges at the men behind me. There was a small groan, but the footsteps continued to chase after me, although now that I had those platforms off, I could run faster. Then I slid to a stop behind Blake as the old men watched their guards with confusion. I almost burst into fits of laughter as I noticed Blake had a moustache. "Why aren't you idiots imprisoning her?" A man in the front roared, his fists shaking with rage. He had copper hair with beady dark brown eyes, the sort that reminded you of a rat. Oh, so when they see a girl not doing anything suspicious, they hate, but when their guards don't do as they're told, they don't suspect, I muttered under my breath. I felt Blake cough next to me and nudge me to the side, pointing his gun at me. "Yes, sir. Hands up, girlie." I could see that Blake didn't want to hold a gun up to my head, but it was all for the act. His eyes looked conflicted as he pressed it to my temple. The cool metal of the gun made me shiver as goose bumps ran up in arms. "What's going on?" I stuttered, willing my eyes to fill up with tears so I seemed legit. Blake looked like he had taken drama classes as he smirked at me and roughly pushed me forward, almost making me believe him if it were not for the fact I knew this was an ambush. "Shut up, bitch, and listen," the same man who I referred to as a rat sneered. Well, someone obviously didn't get any action last night. "Good one," my wolf snickered, "but be quiet now." "Hey!" I struggled weakly. "Get off!" I snarled at Blake and tried to kick him, intentionally missing his shin and losing my balance. He steadied me by my shoulders and brought my arms behind my back, effectively halting my movements. "Bring her here, guard," the rat man demanded, stretching his hands forward, readying to grab me from Blake. Blake put the gun back in his pocket and started to walk forward slowly, pushing me along the way. Wait, he was giving me to the men? He never mentioned this. I felt a surge of panic run through me as we got closer to the council. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. Did I have to cooperate or fight back? Damn you, Blake. I narrowed my eyes at him, but his eyes were trained to behind the men. Just as I was going to be passed to the rat man, Blake halted. "I'm warning you, though. If you take her, I'm going to have to kill you all. I raised my eyebrows at Blake's sudden threat. I wasn't expecting that. I thought he would have handed me over, and then, I don't know, something else. My brain felt all fuzzy for some reason, and I couldn't concentrate. I feel like I have the attention span of a 2-year-old. The rat man suddenly let out a bellowing laughter, clutching his sides. Yeah, sure you will. The man just waved him off and turned towards the men behind him, snickering. I felt anger course through me, but it disappeared when a throbbing pain went through my temple. What was going on? I suddenly let out a yelp when the man harshly gripped my wrist and dragged me forward. I stumbled with shock, yet my dizziness preventing me from fighting back. I landed against his chest, my arms stuck by my sides. Why out of all times does my brain have to play up now? I felt my wolf whimper, and I squeezed my eyes shut in pain. The throbbing died down a bit when I was unexpectedly ripped out of that man's arms. Much to my relief, I dazedly glanced up to see Blake gazing down at me, a concerned expression on his face. I warned you, he growled, stepping back. He nodded twice when out of the blue, the ceiling collapsed and I was pulled backwards against a toned chest. Dust and plaster contaminated the air as choking could be heard from all over. Swearing seemed to be shouted from everywhere as it was almost impossible to see through the debris. Then dark figures jumped from the gaping hole in the ceiling, falling on top of the off-guard men. My head seemed to get worse, and I let out a large groan, letting my head fall on Blake's shoulder. Everyone had 2 heads when I looked around the destroyed room. There wasn't any killing going on, at least. We agreed on capturing them and making them serve their time or punishment for ripping off the innocent shifters. Blake leaned over me, but his head was doubled and kind of transparent. The world around me was going slow motion, and the throbbing was increasing. Hey! Blake lightly tapped my cheek. You still there? I scrunched up my face and gritted my teeth in response. Check my breathing, ass. No need to cause me further pain. There's a thing called a pulse. Come on. He lifted me up bridle style and weaved his way through the fighting bodies. Coming to a stop under a half-broken painting of a naked lady, he watched my face for a few moments. I pursed my lips when a wave of nausea came over me from the headache. That little bitch of a migraine, I muttered, holding my forehead with my hands. Blake just smirked at me and looked around. Well, thanks for the help, douchebag. The world kept spinning and twisting like a sick roller coaster that makes you want to vomit over the people next to you. Right now that person would be Blake, but it seemed I couldn't get anything out of my mouth, and the pounding in my head only got stronger. There better be some damn aspirin here, I moaned, banging my head against the dusty wall. The noises seemed to fade slightly, and there wasn't as much screaming as to when the roof collapsed. When Blake didn't answer, I cracked an eyelid open and peered into the now calm room. Everything was still spinning, but I could tell even through my dizzy haze that the fighting had stopped and that the council was restrained. Quick work, I noted, squeezing my eyes shut as another wave of pain washed over my head. I could only hear footsteps and muffles as it all scrambled together to make gibberish. I jumped, startled at I felt cool glass shoved against my face. Drink. I distantly heard Blake's voice, and the glass was shoved in my face again. I held my hands in front of my face and squinted my eyes, blinking them open. Open your mouth, he demanded when I didn't respond. I opened my mouth when suddenly a pill was shoved in and water was forced down my throat. Bleh! What? I spluttered as I chalked on the water. Was that really necessary? I asked groggily after I got over my coughing fit. You were the one who asked for the meds, and besides, you wouldn't take them when I told you to drink. Blake defended. My headache wasn't clearing up, and I was wondering where he got these pills. You didn't specify why I had to drink, I exclaimed, glaring at him the hardest I could do before groaning and closing my eyes. He sighed when all of a sudden I was lifted up and placed on a comfy lap. Look, we've finished what we came for, and really quickly, so relax. I'm surprised they aren't fighting back. Then there was a loud crash. Much, Blake finished. I cracked a smile at the death. Threats the men were yelling, about how everyone was going to kill us for capturing them and blah, blah, blah. You can, I started, but another wave pain tumbled through my head. Put me down, I finished after a few moments. I felt Blake's chest rumbled behind me, like he was silently laughing. "Nah, I'm quite liking this," he chuckled. "See if you like this when I shove my fist into your face, ass. Of course, when this headache gets better." "What? Seeing me in pain or holding me?" I questioned, not bothering to turn to face him. I hated to admit this, but he was comfy. I kind of wanted to stay like this all day without the migraine and this stuffy hall. "Holding you, of course," he said in a "what else did you think" tone. "I don't know. Maybe you're some crazy sadist who loves to see people in pain? Does it look like I read minds here?" "That's nice." I smiled sarcastically and clawed at his arms as the pain got worse. Seriously, this was not natural. I either ate something bad or I'm about to die. I was kind of hoping it was the first one. Then it stopped. I sat up dazed as my head felt clear and normal. What? Then my head was filled with completely disgusting pictures of Jackson and his men. Blake's POV. I frowned as I watched the color from Lee's face drain out and her form start to shake a little. Her shoulders seemed more relaxed and I could feel the pain from the bond die away, but her eyes were glassy and horror was written all over her eyes. Of course, I felt the pain before, but I tried to show that it wasn't bothering me, and I tried to distract her from it because I couldn't understand why it was happening. For the second time of my life, I never felt this hopeless, as her shacking calmed a little, but the look in her eyes stayed there, that haunted look that confused yet scared him. She didn't seem to comprehend the world around her, as her eyes slowly shut and she fell asleep. The men surrounding me were giving their future alpha female concerned glances, but were respectfully focusing on the ground, besides the few that were restraining the council. All I wanted to do was hide her away till all that pain she's feeling disappears. But since I'm alpha, it doesn't work that way, and I had to focus on my pack's welfare. Gathering her up in my arms, I nodded to the men to follow me with the gagged council, and we headed towards the plains I specifically designed to hold strong prisoners. I had no idea what was going on with her. The only thing I was certain of was that she was alive and hopefully was going to be okay. I knew I should have brought a doctor with me or something. Lyra's POV. I stared down at the mug of coffee resting in my hands. The warm liquid was fast turning cool from me just staring at it, watching the coffee ripple as soon as I moved my wrist. I could feel Bake's worry through the bond, but I couldn't make myself do anything about it. I knew I was going into that phase where I just could give a shit about anything I did or thought. The effects of what happened only set in a couple hours after my memory came back. I didn't want him to have any effect on me, but I couldn't help it. It also didn't help that I also had continuous flashbacks of the first time it happened. "Hey, Flo," I mumbled as she entered the large kitchen. I always wondered what her full name was. It turns out her parents had this weird thing for naming their children after places in the world, and she happened to be named Florida. Her name was pretty cool, but since my name was virtually non-existent, I couldn't find any mugs or keychains for it. The only ones I could find were Lee, and they were in the boys' section. "Why, hello there, sweetie," she chirped, walking past the counter and picking up my not-so-warm coffee. She tipped it into the sink and placed the empty mug on the drying rack and then wiped her hands on the towel to dry them. "How's life?" she asked, taking a seat across from me. It had been a week since we had captured the council and they were held in a prison cell in California, so the alphas all together could make a decision on about what to do. In that time, I had also gotten Freya a place in Columbia, Chicago. Although her semester didn't start until a couple of months, she was still excited. Her mate, Derek, was silent through the whole ordeal, but couldn't stop grinning at me when he saw the look on Freya's face. I was glad I could help her, though. Through some of my pre-college studies, I learned that certain people obtained certain habits to forget or help them get through their past memories, and hers was obviously painting. I had also figured out that mine was fighting, but I just couldn't be motivated to fight. All I wanted to do was close my eyes and sleep, even though I've had more than 12 hours of sleep last night. "Lyra." Flo sung my name in 2 syllables, leaning over the marble counter to stare at my face. "Ha! What?" I yelled, startled. "Oh, right? Yeah, it's good," I muttered when her previous question settled into my head. I was slowly losing my focus, and sometimes I felt like a child when people nudge me to tell me I've missed something. That's great to hear. Now mind telling me what's wrong? She raised both her eyebrows and gave me a how stupid do you think I am look. I simply scrunched up my nose and shrugged my shoulders, not bothering to meet her eyes. Blake told me your memory came back. How are you coping? Flo asked quietly, as if I would break down as soon as the topic was breached. I'm surviving. I tilted the left corner of my lip up in a semi-smile, trying to prove my point, although she didn't seem too convinced. But seriously, I'm fine. She murmured, nodding her head along. If you say so, just don't lock him out, okay? Okay, I pressed my lips together and left the table, letting the door shut behind me as I walked towards the Alpha's wing. The pack house was deserted because everyone was outside playing football or something like that. It felt eerily quiet, and my footsteps sounded like pianos were falling through the floorboards. Walking through the many hallways, I had somehow managed to memorize how to get from the kitchen to Blake's bedroom, which was a big thing, considering my current mood and lack of motivation. Reaching the end of the cream-colored hallway, the large wooden door confronted me, and I pushed it open, letting it close behind me. I dragged my socked feet across the wooden floorboards and let my hands trail the walls either side of me as I neared Blake's room. I wanted to dress up a bit more today since I was lazy all this past week, so I actually bothered to look at what I was putting on this time. I just had deep wine, colored ripped skinny jeans and a white lace top, with of course black combat boots. It sounded strange, but I liked it. Turning the door handle, the door didn't creak like it used to, probably because that was also another object Blake managed to destroy on his rampage. Everything was replaced in the room except the bathroom and closets. Who knew that a room that took hours to complete could be destroyed in less than 30 seconds? If there was ever a furniture monster, then the outcome of Blake's rampage would be its vomit. Pushing the door further in, I noticed Blake was sitting on his bed. His head rested on the headboard, and he was staring at the screen of his iPhone 5. I thought he would have been doing paperwork or something, but all he was doing was staring at the phone, not moving, just staring. It was scaring me slightly. He never used that face in private. He was usually joking around or trying to annoy me in some way or another. What's wrong with him? Help him! My wolf hissed, banging against the cages I had out around her to restrain her. The last thing I want is for her to take over. All I did was shrug and take my boots off and lightly dropped onto the king-sized bed. There was a large gap between us, and my wolf kept yapping at me to see what his problem was. It almost seemed like he couldn't see me as he kept staring at the screen of his phone. I wanted to shake his shoulder and yell, "Wake up!" "This is the day my parents died," Blake spoke up, startling me out of my thoughts. I stared at him wide-eyed. We never really talked about his past much. It was kind of hard with me always being kidnapped or being a bait. Thanks to that dye, though, my hair is a shade lighter than it used to be, so I decided to just have my hair dip, dyed blonde to make the top part look darker. I had always had brown hair, so it was weird to look in the mirror and see half of my hair blonde. Most of the pack here stays quiet. That's why the pack house is deserted. Most like to play rugby or football because it was my father's favorite sport to play. I don't usually participate, brings back bad memories. I nodded in understanding, since I knew what it was like to have something that triggered memories you'd rather forget. Here's a picture of them. He flipped the phone around. I could see it. The picture in front of me held middle-aged couple smiling at the camera. Blake looked identical to the man, except he had brown eyes instead of Blake's bluish-gray. The only thing the woman had in common with Blake was the eye color. Everything else was different. She had long, dirty, blonde hair and pale skin, whilst the man had tan skin, black hair, and deep brown eyes. There was also a massive height difference. The man towered over the woman's tiny frame, which looked to be at 5'2". "How did it happen?" I asked quietly. I moved over a bit so I was sitting right next to him, my hips touching his. He let out a loose breath and wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me even closer. It felt good. It felt right for some reason, and that scared me alone. Blake pulled the phone back when he saw I wasn't looking anymore and sighed deeply. My mum was going out for a gathering with some of the other alpha females in North America, so they could discuss some things. It was to take place in Hawaii, but she never made it that far. She stopped at LA so she could catch a flight with one of her friends, and as soon as she stepped off, she was surrounded and shot multiple times in the head. He swallowed and tightened his grip on my waist. My mum wasn't that strong. Neither of her parents had a title or anything, so she constantly had guards every time she went out. Don't get me wrong, she was a good leader, but didn't have much physical strength. But this time she had convinced my dad to let her go alone. That same day, my dad was ambushed at a meeting on pack grounds. He felt her dying, and he was left vulnerable. They instantly took that opportunity, and he had about 20 on 1. Since he had just lost his mate, he didn't fight much. They tore him to pieces. He could have easily killed them all, but I guess deep down he wanted to die as well. That comes with having a mate. You know, at the start, I didn't want you as well. I convinced myself on the way to the council's place that you'd be good for me and you wouldn't leave. My wolf helped as well. I felt a pang in my chest when he said that he didn't want me at the start. Even though I knew that, it still hurt. Damn, I was such a hypocrite. I didn't want him for a while, even more than him. It was silent after that. It wasn't awkward, just silent, peaceful kind of. It seemed he needed time to think about that day. I never really knew what happened to his parents, only when I accidentally let out the truth about my past. I wish I knew who mine were, I sighed, out of the blue. I felt Blake shift beside me, and he turned to look at me, his legs propped out in front of him. Why are you giving me that look for? I growled when Blake gave me a, "You've gotta be shitting me" look. There's this thing called a DNA test, where you go and find out who you're related to. It's amazing, really. You should try it someday. He smirked at me sarcastically, making me glower at him slightly. What happened to his depressive mood? Why the sudden change? The sarcasm wasn't appreciated. I shook my head and pursed my lips. And I knew that, by the way. It's just, what do I do if I find out who they are? Hey, you might not know me, but I'm your daughter who you put in the foster system 18 years ago. I mimicked in a goofy voice, raising my eyebrows. Just do it. It's not that hard. Look, there's a DNA testing facility a couple hours away from here for shifters. I'll take you tomorrow. Now stop stressing, weirdo, and eat cake or whatever girls do to make themselves happy. His lips twitched, but he desperately tried to keep a straight face, as I felt my face get hot. Dick? I scoffed and pushed him away, making him fall onto his back. And at least I'm not a moody bastard. I swear you were depressed one minute, then the next. Poof, you're laughing at my expense. I muttered to myself, unbelievable. Did I mention that you look good today? He asked, staring up at me as he didn't bother sitting back up. I don't think you did, and the flattery isn't going to work, I replied flatly. He grinned up at me and leaned on his elbows for support. His mouth opened and I inwardly groaned. Here comes the annoying Blake. Ah, shucks, he groaned sarcastically. I really thought I was going to get some action tonight. He slapped the bed in defeat. My eyes bugged and I spluttered when I heard his comment. I tilted my head back and leaned further away from him as I processed what he said. How the hell do I respond to that? Geez, calm down, Lee. I was joking, no need to freak out, he murmured. Now what about a BJ? He smiled. I could see he was fucking with me. The little bastard. Ass! I hissed and smacked his arm. At least I was in a better mood now, Lyra's POV. Giving the punching bag a hard push, I growled as it continued to swing back and forth on its chain. I stupidly decided not to wear boxing gloves, and my knuckles were bloody and bruised, but all of the memories kept coming back like a never-ending film. The hanging bag was pissing me off. It never got hurt or broken, and it just stood there motionless. Not only that, but my wolf was giving me hell. Something about being with Blake. Well, that's what I could gather from her incoherent ranting. I don't see how the bag could still stay straight. I was hitting it with as much strength that was physically possible for me, yet the chain didn't bend or break off. It was a bit of a bruise to my ego, knowing that a punching bag could stand my shifter strength. A deep chuckle brought me out of my hatred-filled stare. Down. It's virtually impossible for you to break that, Blake stated, giving me a wide smirk. Was he here just to piss me off? And why is that? I growled, narrowing my eyes at him. What was he trying to imply, that I was weak? That little piece of... Because of the chain. It's make of tungsten, one of the strongest metals in the world. It's almost impossible for a shifter to break, much less a human. He shrugged, but I could feel his amusement through the bond. For some reason, he was always amused by what I did. It made me feel like some little kid who hasn't hit puberty yet. Why are you constantly laughing at me? I don't remember cracking jokes. That's more of your role. I huffed, still staring at the stupid bag in front of me. Suddenly arms were wrapped around me, and I quickly turned around in reflexes, crouched low, and brought my right leg out across the ground, aiming to swipe out his legs. Blake easily jumped over my legs and grabbed my waist, flipping me up into his arms. I jutted out my elbows and spun in the air, landing on my feet away from him. Grumbling to myself, I swiftly stood up and twisted my body around, while flicking my leg out in a round house kick, only to have my foot caught and my body spun in the opposite direction. I laugh at you because you're cute and it's funny. Blake chuckled, while advancing towards me, while I lay on my back across the wooden floorboards. I could only manage to roll my eyes and roll across the floor, escaping his hold. I sprung up when his back was facing me and grabbed onto his neck, but he seemed to have guessed that I was going to do that and did a forward flip, forcing me to let go and land on my back. A second later, I was lying on my stomach with my hands and elbows pushed together awkwardly behind my head. It wasn't painful, but it left my upper body immobile and my legs threaded through Blake's. Although surprisingly, Blake was keeping all of his weight off my body and had my limbs in a loose but firm grip. Gotcha! Blake smiled in triumph, making me glower and sink further into the floor. Now, shouldn't I get a prize for winning? I could only imagine the giant, goofy smile that was probably plastered on his face right now. I can't believe I lost. I was never going to live this down, although a part of me secretly knew this was going to be the outcome every time Blake and I got into a physical fight. At least I still had the upper hand in the verbal ones. I don't know, you tell me. I grumbled with a scowl on my face. I hated the feeling of being trapped, but with Blake it seemed playful and not deadly or threatening in any way. Yeesh, you're always so stubborn, but all right then, I'll tell you, he grinned wolfishly and flipped me over. But instead of speaking, he leaned closer to my face, his mint breath invading all my senses. My arms were now by my side, but I couldn't seem to think straight from the proximity of our bodies. I kind of felt drunk. I interwove my right hand through his thick hair as he kissed me, all my troubles and memories forgotten, as cheesy as that sounded. I moaned loudly as his tongue entered my mouth and he smiled slightly at the noise. I couldn't help it. I hope you liked your prize. I glowered with a deep scowl plastered on my face. What, you didn't like it? I didn't hear you complaining when... Okay, I get it. Now get off me. I'm suffocating from your weight, I grumbled, trying to sit up. Blake lifted himself off me and pulled me up by my left arm, taking a step back from me. No, I like it, my wolf whined. At times like these, her comments weren't appreciated. Don't hate just because I want to be around my mate and you don't, she sassed. I do want to be around him, I argued. Ha, sure, you always act as though you hate him. Stop letting your pride get in the way. I do not. Right? Earth to Lyra? Hello, anyone inside? I scrunched up my nose when Blake knocked on my head with his fist. Nope, seems hollow, he mused, bending down to be my height. I have a brain unlike you, I scowled and ducked as he went to knock on my head again. Stop! I exclaimed while grabbing my hair in an effort to stop him from patting my head. I swear he enjoyed watching me get annoyed. Nope, I don't think I will, he shrugged and moved closer to me. I could almost feel his body heat as I looked for a way to escape. You don't! Blake grinned as he grabbed my waist just as I was about to run off. I jerked as he pressed into my sides, and a stupid giggle escaped my mouth. Out of all the things I had to be, ticklish was one of them. I think the worst part, though, was that Blake now knew. You're joking. You can kill my best fighters, yet you're ticklish. He shook his head as if he was trying to understand the most complicated thing in the world. You don't make sense. Do I have to? I'm not some math equation, you know? I grumbled. I don't see how I don't make sense. Maybe my mate was more stupid than I thought. You're insulting me in your head, aren't you? Blake observed, nodding his head as if to confirm his thoughts. How the hell did he know that? How did you know that? I choked. Did he have some psychic powers that I didn't know of? Easy, it happens on an hourly occurrence. You have this sarcastic look in your eyes, your forehead scrunches up, and you look slightly upwards. And you say I don't make sense, right? I stretched out the word right and gave him a disbelieving look. Was he for real? He just proved himself wrong. You're doing it again, he pointed out, nodding at my creased eyebrows. No, I'm not, I denied, smoothing out my forehead and looking straight ahead. I'm not doing anything. Someone's lying, he smirked, stepping forward, his hands tightening on my waist. Oh no, he wouldn't. Suddenly I was pushed down on a mat, and Blake dug his fingers into my side and moved them around. I couldn't help the laugh that is my lips, and my head was thrown back from laughter. Okay, I was insulting you, I shrieked, desperately trying to pry his fingers from my sides, but that only proved to make him tickle me further. Please stop, I gasped. Tears were nearly coming out of my eyes from all the laughing I was doing, and I could faintly hear Blake's chuckle at my reaction. Please, I pleaded. I'll do anything. Just stop. I swear I was going to pass out from the lack of oxygen I was inhaling. Not only that, but my stomach and cheeks hurt. I probably looked like I ran a marathon. My face was all hot, and I was gasping for breath. Anything? Blake asked, pausing from his torture. He still held my wrists down in a death grip and was giving me a weird look. Was I missing something here? I felt like I wasn't getting an inside joke. Then it suddenly clicked. No, you sick, minded perv, I screeched. My eyes were as wide as a saucepan, I was pretty sure. Although Blake seemed happy with himself, whenever is he not annoying or unnaturally happy? Never, I was sure of it. Calm down, Lee. I was joking. You can be very gullible sometimes, he murmured, staring down at my face. All of a sudden, he leaned down and kissed me, letting go of my wrists in the process. I kissed him back, moaning. He flipped us over so I was on top, and I clutched his shirt as he trailed kisses down my neck. I suddenly got an idea and started rubbing his upper thigh. I felt him freeze for a second, before he gulped and kissed harder. Love you, I whispered and shot up, running out of the gym, leaving him all turned on. Damn you, Lyra. I heard him curse behind me. That was for tickling me, Blake. Lyra's POV. I'm fine, really, I assured a hyper Alice, Kyle's mate. She was desperate to take me shopping, especially for tonight, which I was just told a few moments ago. Supposedly Blake had arranged a party just after we got back to celebrate finding me or some shit like that. I honestly don't see why everyone is so worked up about it. It's not like we had saved the Earth from mass destruction or anything. Sometimes I think people just want an excuse to party. No, I command you to come shopping with me. I also need to find a dress. Oh, wait, I forgot what color I'm wearing this week. Shit, she cursed under her breath. Could she not see that she was wearing all orange today? It was hard to not stare at her. I don't understand how Kyle could deal with this weekly color thing. Alice, have you looked at yourself? You're in all orange, I stated, raising both eyebrows at her obliviousness. Kyle was right about her having the memory of a goldfish. And who's going to make me go with you? I don't see you having alpha female title here. I didn't want to have to do this, but you leave me no choice, she sighed, and her eyes glazed over as I recognized that familiar look. She was talking to someone through the pack link. All of a sudden, her mouth tilted into a smug smile, like she had won a gold medal. I heard that you didn't want to go shopping for a dress. Well, you know the Warriors think you don't have any weaknesses. What would happen if I accidentally let it slip that you were Actually, I suddenly feel like going shopping. How does that sound? I grit through my teeth, smiling at Alice. Blake smirked and crossed his arms over his chest. I knew I was going to regret having Blake know I'm ticklish. That's great. I know some amazing shops for tonight. See you, Blake. Alice waved her hand enthusiastically and dragged me out of the room, with me flipping Blake off as we rushed past him. The mall is about an hour away, so we better go right now. Alice spoke, dragging me over to her car. This is your car? I gaped. It was definitely something I wouldn't expect Alice to have. This car slightly resembled a Ferrari, but with a sleek roof and looked like it had less air resistance. The color was a deep metallic blue, and Alice looked so out of place against it. I would have expected Alice to have a yellow beetle or something like that. This was just too normal for her. "No way," she defended. "This is Kyle's. My car is in the workshop." The window broke because Kyle decided it would be fun to throw a rock around with Jacob while my car was right next to him. I laughed at her pissed-off expression. "But it's all right. I made him piss himself when he was sleeping for a punishment. Filmed it as well." "Let me guess. You put his hand in a bowl of water. I haven't done that one before." I mused. I've heard about that before. Putting a sleeping person's hand in a bowl of slightly warm water will make them piss themselves. "Come on, we have to be back by 4 or so I can get you ready for the party." Alice opened the door and sat in the driver's seat. I followed suit, putting on my seatbelt. "Wait," I cried, just as she started the engine. "I don't have any money with me." I slapped my forehead, ready to open the door to get some. "Sit down. Rah-rah, I've got Blake's credit card with me. Besides, the doors are locked. You're going nowhere except that mall." I slumped down in my seat. How did I miss that she had Blake's card? Hold on. Did she just call me Rah? Rah? I questioned. Where did she get that name from? "Yeah, I came up with my own nickname for you. Since your name ends with a Rah, I decided I'd call you Rah-rah. You don't really have a choice anyways." I shook my head in disbelief as she started the car. The nickname sounded like a bad TV show. "Hey, what's Kyle's nickname?" I grinned. Hopefully she chose something stupid and worse than mine. "He has a lot of them. My favorite one, though, is Whittle Kiki." My eyes bugged at the name. "Kiki? Whittle? He says he hates it, but I know deep down he likes it. Although I don't say it in public. I would probably die." "Where did you get Whittle Kiki from?" I asked. That was a weird nickname, but thankfully a lot worse than mine. "Oh, when he took me to Australia last year, we went past this shop, Kiki K, and it kind of gave me an idea, because Kai told me that when he was little, his dad called him Little Kick. I don't know. It made sense in my head." Alice frowned, rubbing her forehead in frustration. "It's okay. What are his other nicknames?" "Well, there is Special K, Kai, of course. That's the name I call him the most. Lady Pasta and Poe. The day I met him, he was watching the Annoying Orange, Lady Pasta episode, and I found out that his favorite dish was pasta, so I teased him a bit about it. And Poe, because he came back one day with a black eye while I was watching Kung Fu Panda. You're not so bad, you know? When I first met you, I thought you were creepy, especially with your clothing choices. Wasn't that day all pink or something?" I laughed, remembering her grill down Kyle for being mean, when really he was the victim of my meanness. "Wow, I'm honored," she replied, speeding up on the HBY. "You should be anyway. What's with Kyle? He walked you to my room looking like a zombie. It was kind of weird, seeing him walk her to my room when their room was a floor down from mine. Was she going to get attacked walking up a flight of stairs in a pack house?" "Oh, I put up glow-in-the-dark stars on our roof, and he couldn't concentrate on sleeping when he could see light. And the reason why he walked me to your room was because he was going to talk to Blake about something," Alice answered while pulling into a parking space outside a big mall. "Here we are. Come on." Alice dragged me out of the passenger seat and into the entrance of the mall. The place was pretty big, with many shops, a bowling alley, and a cinema. There were also many teenagers hanging around the entrance and parking lot. Some of them looked high, as they leaned on their cars, laughing like they had just inhaled nitrous oxide. "Hey, there, pretty girl," a guy with a really deep voice yelled while holding up a beer can. I flipped him my middle finger and continued walking with Alice. My face was scrunched up as I looked around the parking lot once again. Was this normal? "Alice, are you secretly taking me to a crack house?" I frowned, raising an eyebrow as she burst into fits of laughter. "Well, are you? Because all I'm seeing are teenagers who look so high they probably think they're sniffing lollipops. No, this is normal. The cops here don't care anymore because this has been going on for ages. And besides, they aren't doing any harm. Come on, they aren't inside the place anyway, just in the parking lot." Alice shrugged her petite shoulders and continued to drag me to the automatic glass doors. The mall was quite modern inside, with 3 stories and fake plants with some small left over Christmas decorations scattered on the walls and roof. There was a food court on the second level, and it seemed most of the popular shops were on the second level as well. Alice headed towards the escalator, and we went up to the second level, where I noticed most of the girls shopped. Forever 21. Alice pointed out, and I nearly groaned. As we entered the store, she immediately skipped over to the dresses and started searching through them. I wasn't sure if she was looking for me or herself, but she pulled out at least 4 dresses, each of them completely different. "I'm going to the change rooms. Choose anything party." "Ish? 'Kay?" She didn't wait for an answer as she dashed for the changing rooms. What the hell do I do now? I walked over to the skirt aisle and looked at them all. I didn't want to wear a dress, but I knew pants wouldn't really be allowed. "I see you haven't picked anything yet. Come on, let me pay for my dress and we'll go to another store." Alice didn't give time to say anything as she dragged me out and into another store, which I didn't get to see the name of. "You were in there for 2 seconds, I exclaimed, but she ignored me and went to the dress aisle. I'd prefer not to wear a dress. How about a skirt or something?" I trailed off, shuffling to the skirt section of the store. "Fine, but I choose what skirt. You choose the top part first." Alice grinned and headed over to where I was. Walking over to the party top area, there was so much glitter it was almost blinding. Everything was over the top and was not what I was used to. "What kind of top are you looking for? A crop, tank, mesh, glitter, peplum?" Alice asked, but I cut her off. "Tank, but nothing glittery or meshy. Something simple." She nodded along with what I said and headed over to the tanks. I followed and watched what she chose. Her hands skimmed the glittery ones and stopped at an electric blue tank that had a faint leopard print on it. "Nah," I rejected, a small hint of a smile on my face when she huffed and kept looking when she pulled out another one. This one was black, but half of it was a see-through lace, which exposed most of my stomach. I shook my head again as she showed me another one I didn't like. "How about this one?" Alice recommended, but I wasn't looking at the frilly tank she was showing me. I was looking at the one in front of the one she just pulled out. It was a jungle green color with the sides open and being held by thick, criss-crossing strings. It didn't have any patterns, but I liked it. This one. I handed her the top I just pulled out, and she smiled in satisfaction. "Thank you. I was about to kill you with all the no's you were saying. Let's go find you a skirt." I nodded and watched without interest as she pulled out a short black tube skirt with a zip at the back. "Now you go try these on and tuck the tank inside the skirt loosely." I took the clothing and headed for the changing rooms. There were about 6 small cubicles with a heavy red curtain for privacy and a long mirror at the end of the hall with a small couch. I took the first stall and tried on the clothes as Alice suggested. I had to admit, they looked good. "Get out and show me," Alice demanded from the other side of the curtain. I rolled my eyes and pushed heavy curtain aside, letting her see the outfit. "It looks amazing. I am amazing," she sighed. "Don't you remember I chose the most important part of it?" I raised my eyebrows and crossed my arms over my chest. "And I thought you were going to wear an orange dress. Yours is floral," I stated. "Oh yeah, I don't usually do that with parties because they are an exception. Let's get some shoes after we pay with Blake's credit," she grinned and fished out a shining silver credit card. Entering Bloomingdale's with our shopping bags, I had to say this was probably the greatest shopping experience I've ever had. Most of the time, I've had to do it on my own, so it was boring and felt like a chore. Alice seemed to know her way around here, as she directed me towards the escalators and went up to the second floor of the shop. I walked around the shoe section and looked at all the boots. I didn't feel like wearing open shoes since it's still winter. "Having fun?" Alice grinned, walking over to a designer's name I had no clue of, and picked up a nude platform pump, scrutinizing it with her gaze. I nodded, say a small, I was thinking of getting ankle boots, so I started off with United Nude. Most of the shoes there freaked me out. Either their heel looked like a little piece of metal off a stool, or it was hollow. I moved on to the designer next to United Nude, Donna Karan. The setup was different to the previous one. The shelves were a light wood, and everything had a kind of beach theme instead of the black and electric colors United Nude had. I sighed and walked past all the boots, scrunching my nose up at most of them. There was always something wrong with one of them. "Okay, what's with you and being really fast with picking clothes?" I reluctantly walked away from Donna Karen to Manolo Blahnik. His shoes were pretty eccentric, and most were stilettos, which was not what I was looking for, and I almost blanked at one of his price tags. I didn't even know shoes could cost this much. I'm just naturally talented at shopping, and Blake doesn't care how much it costs. If I were you, I would go up a couple notches higher. "A couple thousand, maybe," she suggested, walking along with me, a pair of pale pink platform pumps in tow with a thick strip of metallic pink around the base of the heel. "I mean, these are a couple hundred alone. I don't want anything too expensive because I'm probably not going to wear them again. I like sneakers." I nodded along with what I said, entering Steve Madden's zone. His shoes were brightly colored, but when I came along his boots, my eyes immediately darted to a black ankle, high boot. It was a couple inches high and had small triangles cut just outside the laces, exposing a bit of flesh. The whole shoe was in a black velvet material, and I was satisfied. $200, close enough, I shrugged, knowing this was probably the lowest Alice would let me go. We walked up to the counter and got our sizes. The lady at the counter kept fidgeting with the shoes and her hands were shaking nervously. "Is something making you nervous?" I asked, leaning over the desk and smiling at her. She quickly shook her light brown hair and adjusted the glasses on her nose. Then I smelt something weird in the air. This place was reeking of humans, yet there was a shifter scent that wasn't Alice's or mine. "Who's your alpha?" I murmured, twisting my head to see if anyone was listening. Her body started shaking a little more, and it becoming more and more obvious that this girl was scared shitless. The eye contact between me and her was non-existent, and it was a little concerning. "Who is your alpha?" "Katerina," I repeated after her silence, glancing down at her name tag so I could address her. Alice seemed to have caught on to the conversation and moved around the counter slightly so the girl couldn't escape. Well," she spluttered. I noticed that she was gripping the counter tightly and her face looked incredibly pale. "Well, I don't have one. I'm Rouge," Katerina muttered, glancing at one of the other workers in the mall. "Please don't turn me in. I'm begging you. I just want to live a normal human life. I'm not even fully wolf. I'm only half. I can't shift. My mate rejected me because of it. Please." "Who was your past alpha?" I finally asked, taking in her scent again to see if she was lying about being half. She was right. Her shifter scent wasn't as strong as a full-blooded. "Alpha Colin Myers of the Raven Pack." Her head bowed again, and she played with her fingers. "And the beta?" I probed again, trying to get a different reaction out of her. This time she froze and no words came out of her mouth. "He's your mate." I shook my head in embarrassment for our kind. I can't believe a shifter would reject his own mate for being half a shifter, let alone a beta who needed a mate. "We'll leave you alone, but if he decided that he wanted you again, would you accept him?" "Only if he meant it." "See ya, Katerina." I waved at her as our shoes had been finished paying for. "It was nice meeting you, Alpha Lyra." Katerina smiled, and I nudged Alice as we exited the store. "How did she know my name?" I exclaimed, turning to face Alice. She shrugged and rolled her eyes. "Most shifters in America know of your existence. You're the new alpha female of the most powerful pack. It's been big news for a while, especially since you got kidnapped." "I didn't know that," I grumbled, and dumped my bags into the boot of Alice's car. "Well, you do now." Lyra's POV. "I don't like this," I growled and reached for a wipe, ready to clean this stuff off my face. I felt like a clown. "Don't be stupid. It looks great. Now go and put your clothes on for the party," Alice commanded, slapping my hand that was reaching for the wipes. There were 3 other females in the room who were in charge of me, as Blake nicely put it. The girls and Alice had already done their clothes and makeup before me. Fucking pushy people. I grumbled as I entered the bathroom with my clothes for tonight. I slipped out of my baggy shirt and jeans and put on the tank and black skirt. Should I put shorts underneath this? I'm wearing shorts under this skirt. I feel like if I simply lift a leg a few inches, everyone will get a flash. The 3 other girls in the room simply giggled while Alice sculled at me unimpressed. "Absolutely not!" Alice almost screeched. My left eye ticked, and I frowned at being told what to do. Even though Alice was my friend, my wolf was starting to take it as a challenge when clearly it wasn't. "No, I don't care what you say. I'm wearing shorts," I huffed, stalking past her to me wardrobe, sifting through my mountains of clothes that Blake bought for me without me knowing. At least the style wasn't too out of my comfort style. "Look all you want, but I didn't buy any bike shorts." Alice smirked, and I took a deep breath, knowing that she wasn't lying. "What is this?" I yelled, hitting my forehead with my fist. I knew my anger was also partly because my wolf was getting pissed. I stomped over to my shoes and tied them up, feeling Alice tap my shoulder. "Calm down, okay? Now let's go. You're needed." Alice rolled her eyes and dragged me along with the other girls. I stumbled a bit with the heels and let Alice pull me along as I stared at the stairs with horror. "You guys don't need to be here any longer, but thank you for making sure she didn't trash the place." Blake smiled at the three girls as they bowed, murmuring "Alpha," and scurrying off. "She didn't do anything too bad, did she?" Blake laughed as he wrapped his arm over my shoulders, talking to Alice. "Excuse me, but she is right next to you." I growled and slammed my left foot down on his right. He yelped and smiled down at me, shaking his head. "Don't ruin my shoes, I just had them polished." It was then I noticed what he was wearing. He had a dark blue shirt on, with the sleeves rolled up, and black jeans with black shiny shoes. He looked good. He also seemed to notice what I was wearing as well. "I'm gonna give you guys alone time. See you down there." "Rah!" I shook my head at the nickname Alice had bestowed on me. Blake raised his eyebrows but didn't say anything, which was very unusual. "I heard the conversation about the skirt." Blake suddenly smirked at me. "You know, no other girl would have said that. Although, I don't want any other male to see anything." He growled and held me tighter. "For your information, she didn't buy me any bike shorts, and my underwear is not see-through." "That's good," he murmured, and he looked over my outfit again. This time, though, his eyes started to darken. "You look amazing," Blake growled, and before I knew what was happening, he leant down and kissed me hard on the lips. I instantly kissed him back and gripped the back of his head, running my hand through his black hair. We stayed like that for a while until he pulled away and grinned at me. "What? You always stare at me like that when you have something to say." I scowled when his grin got wider and he suddenly picked me up and lifted me bridle style down the stairs. What I wasn't expecting when he jogged down the stairs was for it to be packed with people. Everyone was literally stumbling over each other's feet. How had I not noticed this? "You didn't mention that there would be so many people," I murmured quietly, so only he could hear. "You didn't ask," he shrugged. "Besides, you should see how many people are outside. It literally puts this number of shifters to shame." "Nice to know. Are you going to put me down anytime soon?" I huffed, watching as everyone stared at us silently. I felt like I was being judged, which I probably was. "Come on," Blake gestured, placing me back on my feet. "The thing is actually happening outside." "Outside, everyone," Blake commanded, starting to walk down the rest of the stairs as every filed out. "No, don't leave me. I can't walk downstairs in heels," I cried as I clutched the railing desperately. I should have practiced wearing these before, had I known that my balance magically disappeared as soon as I slipped them on. "I don't know," Blake trailed off, taking a step back, amusement clear in his eyes. "Just help me down the goddamn stairs, or I swear I will castrate you in your sleep," I growled, adjusting the thick strap of my top. "As you wish, Your Majesty." Blake bowed and took the steps by two, and when he reached me, he lifted me up again and carried me down. But instead of letting me down at the bottom of the staircase, he continued to carry me out the door and towards the crowd of people. Actually, the crowd of people were everywhere in the yard, so technically when he walked outside, we were swarmed by pack members. Blake was right about how many people were outside. There were probably thousands. No, definitely. I could faintly see a stage behind everyone. It wasn't one of those theater stages, it was just a set-up wooden stage that was a meter or two high. Everyone was staring and making a path for us to move towards the stage. For some reason, all the elderly women were giving me smug smirks, and it was freaking me out. "You can put me down now, nutcase." I hid his head as best as I could in this position as Blake continued to walk through the crowd, nodding hellos at a few pack members. "Nope, Blake popped the pea and lifted me up higher in his arms. The pack members close to us chuckled at our banter while nodding in respect to us. "Put me down, asshole." I hit his head again, although this time harder. "So that you can't walk. No thanks." Blake chuckled. We were getting closer to the stage, and the constant burning at the back of my head reminded me that all eyes were on us. "I can walk. It's only going downstairs," I protested, crossing me arms over me chest in defense, except it didn't have the same effect, seeing as my elbow kept hitting Blake's hard chest and was bent at a weird angle. "Whatever you say, Lee," he smirked and walked over to the wooden stairs that lead up to the stage. "I hope you die." "No, you don't." And as Blake was right, I could feel my eyes start to twitch in annoyance. "Calm down, we're on stage. If you're going to hit me, don't do it in front of the innocent children," he whispered, lowering me legs to the floor, but keeping his arm wrapped around me waist. "At least they can see how much of a nuisance you are," I whispered through my teeth, keeping a smile on my face as I looked over at the very, very, very large crowd. "I love you too." Blake grinned sarcastically and pecked me on the lips before clearing his throat and bringing the microphone closer to his mouth. "Welcome everyone to the celebration of when our alpha female, Lyra Evans, officially joins the Full Moon Pack. There is an after-party, so please stick around." I knew how this went since I had joined my previous pack, but this time there was a celebration afterwards, and there wasn't any of this alpha-female jazz. It was usually very short, just accepting that you will be a part of the pack, and that you will abide by the laws and traditions of the pack. "Do you, Lyra Evans, accept the Full Moon Pack as your new family and pack mates?" Blake asked seriously, his tone switching dramatically. "I do," I said, waiting for him to finish as it seemed that he had something else to say. "Do you accept the full responsibility of being the full moon's alpha female?" "I do. And last but not least, do you agree to fight for your new pack if necessary and help the pack in time of need?" "I always thought that came with the title of alpha female." "I do." I agreed for hopefully the last time, as I was getting tired of saying, "I do." "Then I declare you the full moon's alpha female," he yelled without the microphone, but everyone heard him, and they started jumping up and down, screaming and cheering. As a finale, I leaned up and kissed Blake on the lips, hearing the background noise of a lot of men wolf, whistling and hooting. I pulled apart from Blake and smiled up at him, feeling my bond with the pack start to form. I know the mark on my back hasn't appeared yet as I have to shift in order for that to happen, but I wasn't too worried about that. "G'day there, mate." Blake greeted teasingly through the pack bond with a pathetic attempt at an Australian accent. I rolled my eyes at him and pushed his head back with my palm. "Not even close to Australian, it sounded Irish." I spoke aloud and gave him a pointed look, gesturing towards the stairs. "Your carriage awaits." Blake cried and crouched down next to me, waiting for me to hop onto his back. "I'm wearing a skirt, Blake." I laughed, giving him a sympathetic pat on the head. "Fine then," he huffed in a girlish voice and picked me up, jumping down the stairs in one hit. Then I spotted her. "Avery!" I yelled, squirming in Blake's grip. Blake chuckled and let go of me, making me fall on the ground and stumbling back, losing my balance because of the heels. Blake caught me and zapped my waist, making me squirm again. "Off!" I slapped his wrist and managed to walk a couple steps forward before Avery tackled me into a hug. "Hey, girl." Avery smiled in my face, rather creepily. Even though she was wearing long heels, she was still extremely short, and I noticed her hair had been cut up to just below her shoulders and straightened. She also had a sharp side bang. Her mate, Carlos, was walking towards us, and when he reached me, he extended a hand and I reached around Avery, managing to shake his hand. "Congratulations, Alpha Lyra." Carlos bowed his head slightly and tugged Avery back to him when she finally let go of me. "Call me Lyra. Your mate is one of my very few sane friends." I quirked. I noticed that he was very serious, which contrasted with Avery's personality. She was very bubbly, while he seemed to ground her a little bit. "Okay. Lyra, I'm Carlos, as Avery's probably already told you. And are you sure she's listed as sane?" he joked, ruffling Avery's hair, making it stick up slightly. "I keep telling you not to touch my hair. It frizzes up." Avery grumbled, combed her fingers through it to smooth it down. I laughed with Carlos as Avery kept muttering profanities under her breath when she couldn't untangle a huge knot in her hair. "It's nice to meet you, Carlos." Blake also shook Carlos's hand and they dives into small talk. "Having fun with your new life?" I asked Avery as she finally ripped the knot apart. "You have no idea, it has been amazing," she smiled. "He's got a really nice house, but he always has to make trips to different cities for shooting and interviews. Most of the time I go now, since it gets too boring, even though the pack's nice. They're a bit different to my old one. All the girls are fine with sitting at home all day doing whatever they do. It's a lot more old-fashioned," Avery admitted. "Well, that's the Falcon Pack. Everyone knows the hierarchy is kind of stuck in the ye olde days. I know, everything's normal except the place of women, although when the new Alpha takes over soon he plans to change that." Avery took a deep breath, muttering a thank God under her breath. When we finished talking, me and Blake walked around and met up with some of his friends and their mates. I was finally getting the hang of these shoes, and it was getting much easier to walk in them. "Where's the food?" I spun around to face Blake as my stomach rumbled. "Inside, in about 2 hours, the adults and children are leaving since we're throwing a party for teenagers only in the ballroom. Don't worry, it has been redecorated." "You're 20, you don't classify as a teenager," I pointed out. "So what? 2 years difference, no biggie. Besides, all the other males with teenage mates will be there." Blake shrugged his shoulders and pulled me to the tables and tables of food. I swear, there was a life's supply of food displayed. "I want chocolate cake. No, spring rolls. No, fairy bread." "Here, just take the fairy bread." Blake rolled his eyes and took 3 slices of fairy bread and dumped it onto my plate. He also took 2 spring rolls, which were next to the fairy bread, and put those on my plate as well. "Thanks," I smiled and shoved a whole spring roll in my mouth. All Blake did was shake his head and take a lamington, not bothering to grab a plate. When I had finished, people had started to come up to me and introduce themselves. So many names, so little time. I groaned, rubbing my forehead. Blake let out a bark of laughter and wrapped an arm around my shoulder. These shoes made me a little higher, so now I reached just under Blake's nose since he towered at 6'5", maybe above. It doesn't really matter. Only the people that you will be having meetings with. There are too many people in the pack to remember. Come on, the party's about to start upstairs." It was then I noticed the crowd had started to thin out. "Let's go then." I let him lead me towards the ballroom since I haven't been there before. Sadly, we had to take numerous stairs. The loud thumping got louder the further along Blake led me. When we stopped in front of a double door, I realized that across the hall, the Alpha quarters sat. "I really need to know my way around this place," I thought out loud. Blake raised his eyebrows at me and chuckled. "What? With your memory, please." "Oh, my memory. I don't ever recall you complaining that I couldn't remember something. Please enlighten me about what I forgot." I rolled my eyes and watched as he flashed me a grin and opened the double doors, letting me go in first. "That's because I didn't want to hurt your feelings." Blake placed a hand on my shoulder in mock comfort, but I ignored him as my eyes wandered around the room. It was extremely dark with black curtains placed over the windows, and the walls seemed to have black wallpaper with glow-in-the-dark stars for added effect. Strobe lights flittered across the room in different colors, and a bar was on my right where there were 3 people serving several alcoholic drinks. The bar's counter had green and blue neon lights across the edges on both sides, and there were red stools placed around it. On my left, there were multiple couches where a large group sat, laughing their heads off. "Sexy Bitch" by David Guetta was playing. It sounded like a remix, but I haven't heard this song in ages, so I'm probably wrong. "Come on, I see Alice and Avery talking over there," Blake whispered in my ear as he pushed me towards them. They were standing right in front of the dance floor, where the lights and speakers were mainly directed at. In all, this place looked nothing like a ballroom, except for its size. "Hey there, Rah!" Alice beamed at me and engulfed me in a hug. "Oh, Lyra, I missed you so much." Avery squealed and hugged me straight after Alice let go. "But you just saw me, only a couple of hours ago," I exclaimed, laughing as she shrugged and squeezed me tighter. "It's still too long. Avery crossed her arms over her chest and then burst into giggles. Was she drunk? I sharply turned towards Carlos, preparing to tell him off for letting her get wasted this early, only to see him talking to Kyle. Both of them had their heads down and seemed to be talking about a very serious topic. Not happy. Dickhead alpha. Move. I could barely catch any words they were saying, which was surprising since I had heightened senses. Blake had gone very quiet next to me and was concentrating on Kyle and Carlos with also a very serious expression. Then, out of the blue, Blake gave a small nod and they continued a completely different conversation, talking about cars. Okay, what was that about? I poked Blake's muscly forearm until he faced me and tilted his face slightly to the left in innocence. Whatever do you mean? That was the worst innocent cover-up I've ever seen in my life. Now talk. Blake sighed and flickered his gaze behind me to Avery, then back to me before sighing. Why do you have to pick up on everything? Blake shook his head with a smile and rubbed the back of his neck. Would do rather me be an oblivious little push, over? I countered back, raising an eyebrow. Of course not. Besides, I don't think I could handle that, having you do everything I tell you to without arguing. Blake shuddered as he imagined me being that way. Neither do I. Wait, you're changing the subject. Stop. No, what was that conversation about before? Carlos wants to change packs because he can see that Avery's not happy there, so he just asked permission from Kyle for when we could have a talk about it. I wasn't supposed to tell you, but since you're incredibly nosy and stubborn, you made me. Blake answered my question through the pack bond. Why aren't I meant to know? I asked Blake. Because he wants it to be a surprise for Avery. Her birthday's coming up in early March, and he wants to be in the pack by then. I nodded along with what he said, although it would probably look really weird for the people around us, since they wouldn't be able to hear our conversation. I didn't think he wanted to move. Isn't his family in that pack? They are, but you know family comes second when we find our mate. Carlos explained to us that he moves around the country quite a bit anyway, and when Avery can't go with him, he wants her to be around people she gets along with. Blake explained. That makes sense, I murmured, nodding my head. So when is he going to tell her? Who knows, but probably soon, seeing as they have to move across the country and Carlos wants to live in one of the neighboring houses around here. Wait, who told you this? Kyle did, dummy, who else would? I don't have a pack link with Carlos's. He stated like it was the most obvious thing in the world. He had that smirk on his face that appeared every time he was making fun of me. Well, I'm sorry. I rolled my eyes at him and let him drag me off to the bar. He said something to the bartender, but I wasn't listening. I was watching as a very drunk Avery dragged a very reluctant Carlos to the dance floor. She was jumping around and bumping into people while Carlos was trying to calm her down. Note to self, never let Avery drink alcohol. Here, drink this. Blake placed a cold drink in my hands and pecked my lips softly, raising his own glass to his lips. I shrugged and took a big sip of the stuff. I cringed as soon as the taste hit me. It was very strong. People were wrong if they thought that alcohol didn't affect shifters. We got as drunk and stupid as humans did. We just tried not to get drunk often, as we are more vulnerable to having our wolves take over. Just as a late precaution, you didn't put drugs in my drink, did you? I asked Blake, taking another sip of the drink. What if I did? He teased and swiftly twisted his body away as I went to punch his arm. I would have to kill you as soon as the effects wore off, I stated seriously, watching as a wide smile spread across Blake's. He threw his head back and laughed. Tossing an arm over my shoulders, he steered me towards the dance floor. Well then, I guess I better enjoy the last night of my life. I was beyond the point of return. But then again, so was Blake. We had knocked back so many drinks I couldn't keep count, and I was sure that tomorrow morning I would be regretting it so badly. Blake had made sure that I had danced through numerous songs until he decided that we should get drunk. Blake happened to be the horny drunk, while I was the giggly type. I know, out of all the different types of personalities that could come out of me while I was drunk, I just had to be the cliché giggle type that couldn't stop laughing. I was currently pressed against the wall, making out with Blake as his hands ran up and down my waist. The ballroom was still full with drunken shifters wobbling around the place. the odd few shifting into their wolf suddenly. I felt Blake lift my legs and wrap them around his hips, and I secured them, but interlacing my feet together as he started to walk off. I wasn't sure where he was going, but I didn't really care at the moment. All I could think about was his lips on mine. I heard a door softly opening, and I broke apart from his mouth, gasping for breath while he continued trailing open, mouthed kisses down my neck, stopping at my pulse point where he would mark me. Lyra. Blake groaned wildly, and the door's locked clicked as he placed me onto the bed softly. He unhooked my legs from his waist. I raked my hands through his thick hair, grabbing the hair at the nape of neck and smashing his lips against mine for the millionth time. And of course, we mated for the first time, drunk out of our minds. Way to go, Lyra. Lyra's POV. Go away, I muttered as the pounding of my head kept getting worse. Couldn't he just fuck off? I pushed the last of my clothes and toiletries into my suitcase and scanned the room for any items that I may have missed. The room was stripped bare and only the furniture was left. The walls were a dull cream color and the floorboards shiny from all the polishing it has been through. The ensuite also only had the bare necessities, with a toilet, shower, bath, sink, and mirror. There was only one window in this room, and it faced an ugly brick wall. I wasn't too happy about it, but others were sharing rooms while I had a private one with a queen-sized bed. My headache faltered for a moment, and I sighed in relief as the pounding stopped. I walked into the room and swept the keys off the nightstand, placing them in a small cupboard behind the door where I was told to put them. The room was eerily quiet. I was used to music blasting through the building as wasted young adults constantly partied. I froze as I had my phone ring from my carry bag, and I jogged to grab it before it stopped. I didn't check the caller ID as I answered the phone. "Hello, Lyra Evans speaking," I said as I started zipping my suitcase back up, frowning when I got stuck at the corner. "Exactly why haven't you been answering me?" Blake growled at me through the phone, loudly. I lifted the device away from my ear as he practically screamed at me. "Do you know how worried I was? I almost called the police when you kept ignoring me. Do you even want to attend college? Because at this rate, you'll be permanently back in Florida if you keep ignoring me when I try to contact you." "You linked me an hour ago, Blake. Calm your tits." I rolled my eyes as I heard Blake breathing heavily down the line. And yes, I was in Denver right now, packing my suitcase because I had just finished my first semester and was ready to spend the holiday break in Florida. Calm my tits. How am I supposed to calm down when I don't know if you're safe or if you've been kidnapped, raped, gotten into a fight, dead? Okay, I get it, you're worried, but I'm perfectly fine. See, I'm talking to you right now. You have to stop thinking the worst every time I block the link. I'm more than capable at taking care of myself. Father. I muttered, picking up my suitcase, rolling it behind me as I closed the door, walking down the corridor. "You know my wolf doesn't like you being away from Packland," Blake murmured as I walked out of the doors, looking for a black SUV that had the number plate FM023. Blake had gotten one of his personal chauffeur to come out to pick me up. I think I could have gotten a taxi, but no. It's not safe. Blake had gotten a lot more possessive and territorial these past months, as I was out of Packlands, and he felt as though someone could kill me any second now. He always checked up on me every day, but today he felt like he had to link me every hour. But I guess his possessiveness wasn't the only that had changed. Avery and Carlos had moved in, and she had fun being a kindergarten teacher who knew she loved little kids. I also had gotten help from a psychologist. I felt really sorry for her since the first few sessions I refused to talk, until Blake threatened to lock me up and not let me go to college. Even though I don't admit it out loud, it did help a lot. I haven't had a nightmare since, and I didn't need to fight as much to get my mind off the horrifying memories of Jackson. Carrie, the psychologist, was very patient with me and let me vent my anger on her as I swore at her and screamed. We also worked on my temper and trust issues. Turns out I needed anger management, although the twitching in my eye hasn't stopped, or so Blake says. I did breathing exercises, soothing music sessions, or Carrie's favorite one, newspaper ripping. If they didn't work, then I had to imagine crazy scenes in my head to take my mind off the situation, like a puppy being kicked, or jelly being poured over Blake, things like that. I also finally talked to Blake about everything that had happened in my life and the nitty-gritty details of what the rogues did to me. He had a fit and shifted right there and then, growling at seemingly nothing as his wolf paced in front of me. "Yeah, I know. I'm coming back for the summer holidays anyway. My first semester has finished. Larry's here anyways," I stated, spotting the SUV park in front of the school. "Good. Okay, I'll let you go. Now don't block the link next time. I'd rather not have a heart attack at 20, Blake joked. My wolf was seriously considering shifting and running to Denver. "Please don't do that. I don't want a mad alpha rampaging around America." I laughed, letting Larry take my suitcase as I slipped into the car. "I would have to track you down, and you know I can't be stuffed doing that." "Wow, I love you too," Blake scoffed. "Bye, Lee." "See ya, boogers," I replied and hung up before Blake could tell me not to call him that. A little cousin of his called him that at Avery's party, and I used that name when I felt like teasing him. I rested my head against the chair, watching us drive away from the college towards the airport, where one of Blake's private jets would be waiting for me to arrive. It had only been 10 minutes before Blake tried to contact me through the pack link. "Do you want sex tonight?" I growled before Blake could get a word in. "Calm your tits," Blake smirked, using the same words I used before. "I only wanted to ask you what you wanted for dinner. Flo wants to cook something special for you and thinks I know what your favorite dish is. Can you tell me something you like, so I don't seem like a bad mate in her eyes?" "Nope, suffer," I hissed, blocking him out. Even though he asked me not to, I didn't want him to persuade me to tell him something I liked. He was very good with making me agree with him. Just before I left for college, the council had been locked up for good. All of the alphas of Northern America had gotten together and built a large underground facility in Texas where they would be held until they died. As for my mysterious family, I had no idea. I guess I would never know who they are or if they abandoned me, but what I did know was that Blake had my back. I guess some things just didn't change, I thought dryly as the familiar feeling of the same headache from before came back. Blake and I were both very stubborn people, wanting our own way all of the time and fighting over the smallest of things, both with our own problems and struggles, trying to get past them without breaking each other's necks in the process. We were both very different in our own ways, but I wouldn't change my blood shade for the world. Well, there you have it, the ending. Thanks, guys, for all of you who stuck by the book. I'm going to edit the book a little to help define the characters' personaloides more, but other than that, it's done. There won't be a sequel to this book. I already felt like I was dragging it on for too long, so I'm not going to continue it further.